All right, so moving on to the next, to another comic review, and this is another book sent to me by my friend Chris. Thank you once again, brother. Today we're going to be talking about DC horror creature Commandos. Now, a couple things. First off, this is not a tie-in to the HBO Max show. This is in no way. It's a completely different cast. It does have monsters in it, but the only connection it has to Creature Commandos is in name alone. So don't go into this thinking you need to read Creature Command. You need to read this to understand the characters. Or if you were curious about after watching the show, you see this, you want to pick it up and think it's the same thing. It's not. The other thing that is of major note to this comic is that it is written by David Dastmalchian. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar right off the rip, you'd know him as like an actor who played Polka Dot Man in The Suicide Squad. He also starred in The Amazing Late Night with the Devil, and he's also been in Ant-Man. He's becoming one of those big actors. So, and it is very clear that he is a comic book fan at heart. That's kind of the big thing with him, is that he is this very big comic book fan and really has a major love for the series. And and David Dastmalchian has written for comics, but he has written other comics before. He's the creator of Count Crowley. He also has been writing another book, which I'm very curious to read and trade, over at Image, called Knights vs. Samurai, which sounds really bizarre and also really fun. So, yeah, it's not like when most stars write comics, they have like a side help and just say, oh, we had a loose idea, we didn't really write the comic. I mean, you do have actors who do write comics on occasion. Like, there are a few, but when the most part, it is mostly, like, when we get to that point, it is mostly actors who are just like, yeah, I just kind of had the plot and I had someone else write it instead. That was kind of the idea. But thankfully, Dastmalchian's not like that. I could actually see him, if he quit acting, he could just go write comics. But yeah. So this story is kind of I don't know if I'd call it in canon for a few reasons, but yeah. So this follows a group called Project M. And Project M is building a new Creature Commandos team with no one you'd really know. You could say, oh, we have Frankenstein there. We have a vampire and werewolf. We do, but they're not the DC Frankenstein or anything of that note. It's more of a group of monsters that are brought in by Project M to combat black ops and supernatural threats. And there's also this overarching threat of a very well-known DC villain. You've probably heard of him. His name's Brainiac. So there is an overarching story in this miniseries. It's also funny to note that the other time I've read a DC horror comic was Sergeant Rock versus Army of the Dead, and that was written by Bruce Campbell. You know, if I had a nickel for every time a horror actor would write a DC comic, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird it's happened twice. Anyway, so what did I think of this? Well, for starters, I think Dastmalchian has a great voice for all these characters, and I will say, however, it feels more like an original Image idea. Like, Dastmalchian had this idea for a original comic, but then he got in touch with DC, and they were like, no, you can make it a Creature Commandos book. That's a title we're trying to bring out more, because, yeah, he doesn't really use anything from anything major, and it's kind of almost tangentially connected to the DC horror line. It is clear, though, that Dastmalchian is a big fan of these other characters, and it is cool to see like the supernatural take on like a bunch of supernatural monsters take on someone like Brainiac. I think that's a really cool idea. Unfortunately, I feel like the comic, for 6 issues, it drags. Like, half the story is more build up to the second half. For issues 4, 5, and 6. The first 3 issues is more like establishment and a very slow burn, and then it picks up in the next 6 issues. I feel like this could have helped if we had just a wee bit more story, we had a little more time. That's the better word. Yeah, if we had if this was an 8-part comic instead of a 6-issue book, I feel like we could have paced this better, but I don't know. All the characters are pretty interesting. They're all original characters, like Lucky, who's our Frankenstein monster, Valko, who is our vampire. We have Mina, who is a Medusa. And we have Wanda, who is a werewolf, and also like she's called the SJW, the Social Justice Werewolf. She has a lot of great lines. It's kind of fun. And we have a Dr. West character. No, not Herbert West. This Dr. West is a woman, and there is something inside of her that's really cruel and evil. There's also other military characters, but yeah. The big thing is, again, Brainiac's plan really doesn't make sense. It's kind of a hodgepodge of an idea. And also there's a monkey named Coco, which that was a deep cut of a character. That Coco was a monkey for one of the Brainiacs in the pre-52. Also, it really does feel like this Brainiac, he looks like comic Brainiac, but he doesn't act like comic Brainiac. He acts like this was meant to be a Brainiac from like the Golden Age or something like that. And also the plan is really convoluted, and I feel like there's a lot of spinning plates that just don't work. I'm not saying Des Melchin's a bad writer. I actually think I've read some of his other his short stories in Headless Horseman and Creepshow. He's actually really good, and I'm very excited for Knights vs. Samurai and what other comics he's going to do in the future. He does have a bright spot for it, but here, like I said, it feels more like this comic was meant to be a original Image idea. And then at the last minute, like someone at DC Comics was like, hey, you want to make this sounds like a cool idea. You want to make it a Creature Commandos book and we'll let you play in the DC universe? And he was like, hell yeah. And I don't think he put the pieces, the pieces didn't fit together right. It's an okay book. It's just kind of a slow story. There are some great lines and great dialogue. I'm not saying it's a bad book. It's just kind of slow. And also, again, the villain plot doesn't make a lot of sense. All in all, it's okay. I'd say maybe wait for it's a little cheaper. But yeah, Des Melchin's got a future in comic writing. And yeah, it's a pretty good book. It's a pretty decent book. Anyway, but if you have read Creature Commandos, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of it. Chris, thank you once again. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in Multiverse.